Humans impact the physical environment in many ways. Overpopulation, pollution, fossil fuels combustion, and deforestation. Changes like these have triggered climate change, soil erosion, poor air quality, and undrinkable water. These negative impacts can affect human behavior and can prompt mass migrations or battles over clean water. Some of us are already more vulnerable to climate impacts, such as people living in small island nations and other developing countries. Knowledge regarding this phenomenon helps young people to understand and tackle the consequences of climate change, encourage them to change their behavior, and helps them to adapt to what is already a global emergency. The study's overall objective is to gather viewpoints of youth from different facets of life about how they perceive global warming's impact on them as individuals and as members of society. The main objectives are as follows. First, to identify the extent of their knowledge as to what climate change is, followed by the steps the interviewees do in order to mitigate or lessen the impact of climate change, and lastly, to recognize the extent of which they share or take part in disseminating information about climate change. With the human population at an all-time high, comes with it the rise of fossil fuel consumption as a source of energy, as well as anthropogenic activities that contribute to the planet's greenhouse gases. These help increase the temperature of the Earth, causing global warming. The global warming's effect disturbs the ecosystem and the environment, where calamities may occur and become fatal to many species. The researchers are concerned for the future of the country due to its topographic location, wherein the possible rise of seawater due to melting of polar caps and glaciers is sure to submerge islands, which Philippines is well known for. The researchers intend to distinguish the capacity of how well-informed an individual is with facts about climate change and what are the possible steps he or she can do willingly to help lessen our carbon footprint.
I believe that mankind has looked at climate change in that same way, as if it were a fiction, as if pretending that climate change wasn't real would somehow make it go away. But I think we all know better than that now. Every week we're seeing new and undeniable climate events, evidence that accelerated climate change is here right now. Our oceans are acidifying, with methane plumes rising up from the ocean floor. We are seeing extreme weather events and the West Antarctic and Greenland ice sheets melting at unprecedented rates, decades ahead of scientific projections. None of this is rhetoric, and none of it is hysteria. It is fact. This is not a partisan debate, it is a human one. Clean air and a livable climate are inalienable human rights. And solving this crisis is not a question of politics, it is a question of our own survival.
None of this is a coincidence, because climate change is not a coincidence or a scientific anomaly. Climate change is a consequence. It is a consequence of our unsustainable way of life, because it is unsustainable to organize our society as we have, centered on prioritizing personal gain and profit over any and all human or planetary considerations. And frankly, it is unsustainable to continue to believe that our system of runaway, unaccountable, law-breaking pursuit of profit, whose inequality is so socially destabilizing that it is giving rise to authoritarians who burn our forests and challenge the democracies that listen to basic science, and to think that that has nothing to do with this. That the government knew that climate change was real starting as far back as 1989 when NASA was reporting this, and the private sector knew way back in the 1970s. So we had until around the time I was born to address this issue. I wish it didn't have to cost so much, but I'm gonna turn 30 this year, and for the entire 30 years of my lifetime, we did not make substantial investments to prepare our entire country for what we knew was coming. So now it's coming all up at the end. It's like when we live our whole lives and we don't eat healthily and we don't move and we pursue unhealthy activities. And then at the end of our lives, our healthcare costs are very high. We have the choice to lower the cost now, because I can tell you the cost of pursuing a Green New Deal will be far less than the cost of not passing it.
That the real problem of this world is not climate change. The real problem is us because of our ignorance and apathy. What we have to do is to start changing our ways, to start recalibrating our minds and redirecting our steps, because only together as a global community, our micro efforts will have a macro effect to help save the planet.
Yes, I believe in climate change because I can see it and I can also feel it.
Definitely, I believe that climate change is real. It is happening now actually, as some of the most noticeable examples include the temperatures moving up and down during the course of a day. We notice na after it rains, the weather gets sultry and extremely dry throughout different areas. And that is just one example, because there are a lot of evidences that support the argument that the Earth's climate is rapidly changing.
The glaciers melting, melt na gid siya, then other places is nag-rise ng ang water level niya tungod ana. So ana sila nga in the years to come daw basin kato siya nga places din na gid daw mapuy-an kay malubog na siya sa water. Then ang kanasang climate diri sa Pilipinas kaniya yang raining season o kanang inig kanang tag-init na bitaw kay dili na siya ga kuan sa sakto nga month kay sa una is ang raining season is naman gyud na siya sa December, January or kanang November, December, January ana nga mga month kanang bare months na siya ang kasagaran gyud nga gaulan. Then ang kanang tig-init is nasa mga May, April, then June, July ana. But now is kanang murag all year round na siya init kayo, then magulan kay murag dili na kayo siya gaulan gyud, talaga na lang kayo.
In the Philippines alone, there are several effects caused by climate change, including sea level rise, rising temperatures, and extreme rainfall.
Mag-start tag small gyud sa una ra gyud, pero sa una ra kay ni siya start small nga ang proper waste disposal gyud. If makuan siya kung pwede simo siyang ibutang sa compost pit para mahimong pang abuno kanang organic siya nga abuno. Dayon kanang energy conservation kung unsay mo mabuhat nga maka-conserve kag energy kay dako na kay na siyang tabang. Ang kuan karon kay low og energy na dili na usay kay kulang na siya kasagaran na gali kay ginag-burn out usahay sa other places kay tungod anang short of energy na gyud, so pwede ka kanang pag-use nimo sa mga lights if dili ka magamit mong palungon ng mga electricity na kuan sa inyong balay naka-connect. Then kanang replanting trees dapat kabuhaton kini siya kay tungod sa kanang pagkuan sa kanang murag gaunlad bitaw nag-grow na gyud ang kanang places karon kailangan na kanang magputol og mga trees then kay himuon og balay mga furnitures mga ninana mga kuan sa siya mapulihan ang nakuan ang nawala kay grabe na ang flooding gid karon grabe gyud kakahitabo sa flooding.
This is so basic and I hope most if not all is doing this. I separate my waste properly. I make sure na the dry waste and the wet waste are separated so that the dry can be recycled and the wet can be composted. Also, I reduce using plastics. Just reduce because, let's be honest, there are certain times na other alternatives cannot do as much as plastics can. But don't worry, I recycle them.
Ang unavoidable nga environmental damage nga kog yung makos is kanang pag-burn sa garbage ay usahay kay dili gato nga ang mga garbage truck man gyud ma-burn gyud nimo ang other nga mga garbage kay kuan kanang langawon na usahay dili ka kabalungan na day ang garbage collectors sa inyong place. So maarag to siya. Thank you.
I've stated it in the previous question already that I use plastic sometimes, and we all know that plastics are harmful in our environment because they're spreading toxins and our planet is full of them already. However, I don't think we can truly avoid using plastic because there are people out there who find alternatives for plastic being sold in the market expensive. Maybe not for you, but it is for some, especially those who come from low-income household. So we cannot really blame them. That's why for me, it is not totally bad to use plastic, but it is otherwise if they are not being recycled and used properly.
Climate change is a major problem on a global scale, since it is contributing to rising global temperatures, altering precipitation patterns, rising sea levels, and natural disasters. Many of the world's biggest challenges, from poverty to wildlife extinction, are made more difficult by climate change. And things will get worse if we do nothing. But as individuals, we can slow down global warming by implementing small, more sustainable actions within our community. With a simple step, we can fight against climate change. Instead of using your car, it is safer to use sustainable transportation to help reduce your carbon footprint. This will reduce emission on our planet. Sharing local knowledge and putting the 3 R's reduce, reuse, recycle of sustainability into practice, we can save over 730 kilos of carbon dioxide emissions each year just by recycling solid waste. As far as possible, avoid cutting trees that will lead to deforestation and wildlife extinction. Instead, plant more trees, because trees can clean the air, prevent rainwater runoff, help you save energy, and even combat global warming. We have the knowledge and the technology to reduce our impact on the climate and ease the pressures on the world's most vulnerable places, people, and wildlife. We just need to make it happen, and it all starts on you.